You've got the most complex object in the known universe sitting right inside your head. But here's the thing, it didn't come with an owner's manual, did it? This 3-pound powerhouse is behind every single thought, feeling, and action you have. So today, we're going to fix that. Let's dive in and finally get to know that incredible brain of yours.
So, could the bumps on your head actually reveal who you are? I mean, it sounds pretty out there, doesn't it? But believe it or not, for a while there, a lot of people thought the answer was a huge yes. And what's wild is that this totally wrong idea accidentally kicked off the journey to understanding how our brains actually work.
All right, so let's jump in the time machine and head back to the 1800s. Our story doesn't start in some fancy lab with brain scanners. Nope. It starts with a pretty weird practice that was all about, well, feeling people's heads.
And this is where we meet our main character, a German doctor named Franz Joseph Gall. Now, he wasn't styling hair or giving massages. Gall was trying to start a whole new science. And his #1 research tool? You guessed it, his own hands.
So what was his big idea? It was called phrenology. The whole concept was that the bumps and dips on your skull were like a roadmap to your personality, your character, your talents, everything. I know, it sounds completely bizarre to us today, but this thing was popular. It was a big deal for decades before everyone finally agreed it was total pseudoscience.
But here's the twist, and this is what's so cool. Gall was so wrong about the skull bumps, but he was accidentally so right about something else. The idea that skull shape dictates personality? No, complete chunk. But the idea that different parts of the brain have specific jobs? That was a game changer. He basically stumbled onto a core idea of modern neuroscience, the localization of function.
Okay, so at this point, Gall's idea was just that, an idea, a theory. But then, in 1848, something happened, a truly horrific accident that would provide the most shocking and frankly gruesome proof you could ever imagine.
Meet Phineas Gage. He was a railroad foreman, apparently a really great, well-liked guy. Then one day, a freak explosion happened and a massive iron rod, a tamping iron, shot clean through his skull. The craziest part? He survived. But as you can see, the Phineas Gage who walked away from that accident wasn't the same man. He lived for another 12 years, but his entire personality had been changed forever. And just to paint a picture of how insane this injury was, the doctor who treated him wrote down a pretty shocking detail. He said that when Gage coughed, a teacup full of his brain literally fell out of the hole in his head. And yet, moments later, he was up and talking. It's just unbelievable. So this is the key point. Gage could still walk. He could talk. He remembered things. But his personality completely flipped. The nice, mild-mannered guy was gone, replaced by someone who was described as rude, mean, and unreliable. People said he was no longer Gage. For the first time, we had hard proof that who you are, your personality, is physically located in the tissues of your brain.
All right, so we have established that different brain areas do different things. But how's it all organized? It's a super complex machine, right? Well, there's a really simple way to think about it. Imagine a set of Russian nesting dolls. You see, when it comes to the brain, evolution didn't just throw out the old version and start fresh. Instead, it just kept building new, more advanced layers on top of the old, more basic ones. Just like those nesting dolls, the oldest, most fundamental parts are deep inside, and the newer, fancier parts are on the outside. So we can kind of break it down into 3 main dolls or layers. Deep in the center, you have the old brain, which is all about survival. Then you have the next layer, the limbic system, which is the hub for emotions and memory. And then the big one on the outside is the cerebrum, which is responsible for all our high-level thinking. So let's start with that smallest, innermost doll, the old brain. Think of this as your body's autopilot. It handles all the stuff that keeps you alive without you even having to think about it. Your heartbeat, your breathing, coordinating basic movement. This is the ancient reptilian part of your brain, the fundamental machinery. Okay, moving one layer out, we get to the limbic system. This is your brain's emotional core. It's where feelings like fear and aggression come from, but also pleasure and reward. And crucially, it contains the hippocampus, which is absolutely essential for creating new memories. Basically, this is the part that lets us feel and remember. And now for the biggest, outermost doll, the cerebrum. This is what you probably picture when you think of a brain.
It's that big, wrinkly, gray thinking cap that covers everything else.
And when I say big, I mean it. The cerebrum makes up a whopping 85% of your brain's total weight. This is the part that gives us the power to think, to speak, to perceive, to be human.
This wrinkly outer surface is called the cerebral cortex, and it's split into 4 main sections, or lobes. You've got the occipital lobe at the back for vision, the temporal lobes on the sides for hearing, the parietal lobe up top for touch, and then there's the frontal lobe right up front. And this is the exact part that was destroyed in Phineas Gage. It's the CEO of the brain, handling planning, judgment, and your personality. It's a perfect real-world example of how these functions are localized.
Okay, so now that we've got a basic map of the brain laid out, let's have some fun with it. Let's use what we've learned to bust some of the biggest myths you always hear about the brain. I'm sure you've heard this one a million times. We only use 10% of our brains, right? Just imagine if we could unlock that other 90%. It's a cool idea for a superhero movie, but in reality, yeah, it's completely false.
Just think about it from an energy perspective. Your brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but it uses 20% of all the calories you burn. That's a huge energy investment. Evolution just doesn't build something that resource-hungry to let 90% of it sit idle. And besides, brain scans show us a different story. We see that pretty much all of our brain is active, pretty much all the time. Okay, what about the whole left brain, right brain thing? You know, logical people are left-brained and creative people are right-brained. Well, it's true that some functions are more dominant on one side, but the two halves are constantly talking to each other. Saying you're right-brained because you're artistic is about as scientific as, well, as saying you're artistic because you have a bumpy head. See? We're right back to phrenology.
So, after this whole tour of the brain, from weird bumps to Russian dolls, what's the one big idea to walk away with? It really comes down to this simple but powerful thought. The mind is what the brain does. Everything that makes you, well, you, your thoughts, your dreams, your personality, it's not some magic floating spirit. It's the incredible, physical, biological work of that 3-pound universe inside your head.